Would you like a conspiracy theory? I know you would. I know you would. I give you now my conspiracy theory. I feel like I won't be kicked off of social media if I call it a conspiracy theory, because it is. So what follows should not be accepted as true. What follows is speculation, speculation alone. Fun speculation, but speculation alone. Don't go all QAnon on me, okay? It goes like this. Why is China doing so well on the coronavirus? Is it because they do more aggressive lockdowns? It could be. Could be. I don't believe it. I mean, I hate to call it common sense because common sense is an illusion, but my judgment, based on what I'm watching, is there are a lot of people in China, and they had a pretty big infection at one point, and the people do move around, and I don't understand why they're not deeply infected. And I don't believe that the lockdown quarantine aggressiveness is really what's going on there. Feels like something else is going on, doesn't it? It feels like it. Now, you have to be careful that your feelings don't actually tell you anything useful. It feels like there's something going on, but I don't know that there is. And I was asking, what is it that China uses for their early symptoms? You know, the people who have mild cases but might turn into worse cases. Is there some way that they treat them differently than the United States? And because I have lots of smart, well-informed people following me on Twitter, it took all of about a minute for somebody to produce the official document that keeps getting updated that tells you what China knows about it, the virus so far, and what their protocols are for treating it. So there you go, right? There's the official Chinese document. They update it regularly. There's a section there about what they use to treat it. Said something about antivirals, being used early, maybe a little bit more in China, something like that. So there you go. We're good, right? Maybe they use a little more antivirals. But if that worked, and that made a big difference, it's right there in the document. So wouldn't we also be using it and getting the same outcomes? So it can't be, that can't be the answer. The answer can't be that the things they're using for early mild symptoms is so different than what we're doing that they're getting a whole different outcome, like wildly different outcome. Nah, I don't think it's that. But there was one sentence in there that caught my attention. It was a specific sentence in this China-made document saying that hydroxychloroquine is not recommended. Not recommended. A direct sentence. Hydroxychloroquine is not recommended with or without azithromycin. So they threw that into the sentence. So that's pretty clear. If you were thinking to yourself, hey, I think China is secretly using hydroxychloroquine and not telling anybody, well, you don't have to worry about that now, because their official document says they recommend against it. So that must be true, that they don't use it in China, right? Do you believe that? Here's my conspiracy theory. Again, don't go all Q on me and believe this. I'm just saying we live in a world in which you can't rule things out that you would like to rule out. You know what I would like to rule out? I would like to think I lived in a world where I could say, no, China's going to tell us the truth about this virus thing. They're not going to lie about the virus. That's not going to happen. Except we don't live in that world. We actually live in a world in which the following conspiracy theory I'm going to describe could happen. Completely could happen. I don't have any evidence that it has, so I'm not claiming it as a fact. But here's what it would look like. Suppose you created a gain-of-function virus enhancement. In other words, human beings in a laboratory, hypothetically, created a change in an existing virus to make it even more deadly. Now, we hear that such types of research is going on in labs in various places, so we should not be surprised if it's happening. So step number one, do you believe that gain-of-function research is being done in major labs? I feel like I do believe that. Even if we don't intend to use it, I would imagine that for defensive reasons alone, we would be doing that research to find out what can and cannot be done. Because if we find out there's nothing you can do to add function to a virus, well, then we feel safer. We don't need a defense against that. But if our own laboratories found out, oh, gee, this is kind of easy to do, because we just did it. I mean, we just did it. So we'd have to worry about our enemies doing it because we can do it. So the question of whether such research happens in laboratories, I would say, wouldn't your judgment say yes? Like guaranteed yes? You don't know how much of it, you don't know where it's happening, but that's got to be happening somewhere, right? Number two, if, let's say, some country came up with a virus that had a cheap solution, a drug that could be made, let's say, easily in the country that made the virus gain a function, but could not be as easily available to their enemies. That'd be a good virus, wouldn't it? The ultimate virus is one where you have the antidote, or something like it, and your enemies do not. But suppose they could also get it. Suppose your enemies had a way to get it, maybe not as easily as you, because you make this in your own country, and maybe we don't make any of it in our country. Well, we can still get it through, let's say, third-party countries that have a little extra or whatever. So we can still get some. What would you do, and again, I'm not saying this is happening, but what would you do if you were, say, this country who had hypothetically made a gain-of-function virus, hypothetically had a solution that you could make as much of as you wanted in your own country, of a cheap therapeutic, let's say, but you wanted to keep other countries, let's say your rivals, from using it to the extent that they can even get it? What would you do? Well, if you had control over the major media in other countries, and you could insert things about what to believe, and do mind control of your rival, well, you would tell them that the drug that's working fine in your country is dangerous, and it doesn't work at all. Now, could China really do that? I mean, if they had a drug that was working in China, could they really convince Western media that it doesn't exist and that it's dangerous? It doesn't exist in terms of it doesn't really work, and that it's dangerous. Would they have that kind of power to actually just brainwash the United States? Yes. No, it's not even a close call. Yes, they have that power. How do I know? Well, we have a little story today in the news about a woman, I think it was CNN covered it, a woman who had been drawn into the QAnon conspiracy thing. And what was it that programmed her to believe in Q after the election? This is someone who didn't even follow Q before the election, but got quickly brainwashed into believing it, and now has unbrainwashed herself and realized she was brainwashed. What was it that brainwashed her? Well, according to her story, it was she must have clicked on something, a Q content on TikTok. And then TikTok, having seen her click on some Q content, started feeding her more Q content. And she saw more of it, and she clicked more, and she consumed more, and then the algorithm fed her a little bit more. The algorithm of TikTok, according to this person who tells the first person story, hypnotized her into believing in Q. Hypnotized her. Now, you could say brainwashed or mind controlled. It's all the same thing. But TikTok is owned by a Chinese company which is controlled by the government. And so a Chinese government app, according to this one anecdotal study, you have to be careful. It's one example. It doesn't prove the general statement, but I feel like the generality of this is pretty obvious. If you can program one person just by the algorithm feeding them more Q content with a Chinese app, and then she takes what she learned on TikTok and she takes it to other social media, looks for more Q stuff, their algorithms probably do the same, feed them more Q stuff. In this case, in an American company case, probably not as part of some plot, but the algorithm just gives you more of what you want. So yes, the following scenario, I have no reason to believe it happened. And you shouldn't either. So don't believe that what I say next is some kind of a truth or fact. I'm just saying we live in a world where the following thing could have happened easily. China could have created a gain-of-function virus. They could have found a cheap, available therapeutic, let's say hydroxychloroquine, just as an example. I'm not saying that it works. The evidence is against it, actually. But suppose they had that. Suppose their country had not quite a monopoly, but they could make as much as they wanted for themselves. They could restrict it from other people. And could they then also control the media to tell you that the secret drug that they use doesn't work? They could do that easily. Every part of this is actually completely doable, as far as I can tell. Now, does that mean that they did that as part of an intentional plot to release a virus and get this outcome? I would say probably not, right? Probably not. I don't see China being dumb enough to intentionally release a virus to try to get some long-term geopolitical gain. Far more likely, they were researching and maybe seeing what they could and could not do, and it just got out. Once it got out, then they would scramble to figure out what to do about it, which might include the conspiracy theory that I explained. But again, there's no evidence of that. No evidence whatsoever. But if you heard what actual Chinese doctors prescribe, do you know? I mean, we have this document put out by the government that says what Chinese doctors are supposed to do. But do you think Chinese doctors are doing that? Do you think that's how they're handling it? I don't know that we have any visibility about what Chinese doctors are actually prescribing. Do we? I'll bet not. So, again, I don't make the claim that the virus was intentionally engineered or that it was intentionally released or that hydroxychloroquine works. The evidence suggests it does not. I'm just saying we live in a world where all that could have happened easily. Amazing, isn't it? All of that could have happened easily. And maybe it did. I just don't have any proof of it.